Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at the Knights Armament SR25E2PR M-LOK. Now, I've been very fortunate over the last month or two to have some rifles in from Knights Armament. They've been very difficult for me to get, but I want to give a call to a gentleman named Ash Hess at Knights who's been very gracious to help me get some guns out and be able to do some reviews for you guys. You've already seen reviews we've done on the SR15 as well as the M110. What we're looking at today is the state-of-the-art of the entire Knights Armament SR25 lineup right here. Now, what you see here is accumulation of guns from the last, I'd say 60 years, 70 years or so, from the 1950s, when the original Armalite AR-10 came out. So if you look at the original rifle that came out in the late 50s, basically it was trashed by U.S. Ordnance Corps. It failed with the sales at Artillery Richtingen of Holland. And then the gun just went into obscurity until 1992-93, when Gene Stoner went to work with Reed Knight to resurrect his AR-10 is the SR25. Now, the original SR25 match was just a incredible rifle. You look at it when it came out at the time, and I probably still think that it is to this day the most accurate semi-automatic 7.62 platform in the world. So you have the SR25 match rifle that came out, which is a 24-inch barrel. I do have one of those myself. And then from there, we have the evolution to the Mark 11 with the U.S. SOCOM. And then from there, we go to the U.S. military adopting the M110, which, you're looking at a rifle that our Ordnance Corps snuffed at in the 1950s and dismissed it. But nearly 70 years later, it would be the rifle that would equip the finest snipers in the world. And then from there, you go to the M110C prototypes, and then what you see right here. Now, this rifle here, the most popular version is the 16-inch barrel. This happens to be the 20-inch barrel. But if you look at everything else on the rifle, it's going to be the exact same as the 16-inch. So, we're looking at a 20-inch barrel right here. We're looking at a weight of 10.5 pounds. This is relatively light, and a lot of it has to do with the handguard itself. The handguard is a one piece, and it replaces the barrel nut, which we're going to go over in a little bit. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into this, and we're going to look at the gun from back to front. Now, Knights for the longest time has utilized the LMT SOP mod stock and receiver extension. Now, the receiver extension here is a longer extension, so you can use a standard AR-15 M16 type buffer. Normally what you see with a lot of the AR-10 type rifles is they use the same mil-spec length receiver extension, and then they use a shorter buffer. Well, using a shorter buffer is not a good idea because you don't get enough weight in there to halt that heavy bolt carrier and to give enough resistance to to keep the pressures where they need to be. So this is a far better way of doing it, utilizing a longer receiver extension and using the standard buffers. So these all generally have like an H3 type buffer in them. Now, when you look at the upper and lower receiver, you're looking at 7075 T6 aircraft grade aluminum forgings. If you go back in history, look at the original SR25, the top was made from an extrusion and the bottom was made from a forging. Now we have a complete upper and lower forging sets. Now, if you notice on the receiver extension end plate, we have dual QD attachment points, which is a really nice point that for this rifle for as far as being able to put the sling wherever you choose. Now, when you look at the lower receiver, we have a standard A2 type pistol grip. The trigger, we have a Knights Armament two-stage match trigger. Now, Knights was probably one of the founding fathers of the two-stage trigger for the match rifle. They probably made the best one in 1994-95. The rifle I have, again, which is circa 1995, had an absolute beautiful trigger. And triggers haven't really changed much since. You got a lot of other guys who are making them now. But I still think, to this date, Knights makes one of the finest two-stage triggers. And you also have an enhanced trigger guard, as you see here. And you also notice we have a ambidextrous safety. And if you notice, we have a shorter lever over here, so if you are right-handed, it doesn't interfere with your trigger finger for as far as the way that it sits. If you have a full length on the side here on the throw lever, that can be uncomfortable to your trigger finger, but they've taken some material out of there so it's more comfortable for you to be able to carry. Now, if you look here, we have what's referred to as a bolt release. Now, what I say is ambidextrous bolt release. You cannot lock the bolt open from the right-hand side. You have to lock it open from the left-hand side by depressing the lower portion of the bolt catch. So you have a bolt release on the right side, and on the left side you have the bolt catch and release. You see our standard magazine release button. You will see we have a magazine. When the SR15 was first entered the market in 1995, they were equipped with a lot of these original AR-10 magazines, which are aluminum. You can see they're identified by the waffle pattern. Now, these are not what you would call the most durable magazine. They were designed to be preloaded and discarded, not to be reused over again. So initial rifles had these, and then Knights went on to make their own magazine, which is manufactured out of steel, much stronger and much more durable. Used over and over again. These magazines are pretty indestructible, but very few of these were made before the assault weapon ban. Before the ban took place, Knights was able to get quite a few of these magazine bodies made. So when I bought my rifle, which was again after the ban, I was able to get 3 high-capacity 20-round magazines. Then they pretty much had dried up until the sunset of the assault weapon ban, and then these were put back into production. But these are definitely the highest quality magazine in the industry. They are also the most expensive. If I recall, these are around $80 a piece. But it's a very heavy-duty magazine. Probably more commonly, you'll see the P-Mags being used with these. But that's sort of the evolution of going from this to this. Now, there's no industry standard magazine, if you would say. Now, for the military, they use, when they had the M110, they used this magazine here. When they had the Mark 11, they used this magazine here. When the new rifles adopted the M110C, the H&K, that was a whole different magazine, not compatible. So there really is no mil-spec magazine, but for as far as the industry is concerned, probably a good 90% of the rifles in the industry who fire .308 utilize the SR25 type magazine. So they are the most common. So again, looking on the right side, you're going to see no forward assist. Excellent, wonderful. Gene Stoner was adamantly against the forward bolt assist with the AR-15 M16. He said that it was going to cause more problems than it was going to fix, and he was absolutely correct. When he designed the AR-10 back in the 50s, it didn't have one because it didn't need one, and he knew it was going to cause problems. When he came back and he designed the SR25 because it didn't belong there, he didn't put it there. And Knights, fortunately, Knights, along with like Lewis Machine and Tool, these companies have stayed steadfast with the designer's wishes and not having a forward bolt assist. Many other companies have gone kicking and screaming because there was so much of a interest and so much of a demand from customers that they wanted one, they put one on. But the gun doesn't need one and it shouldn't have one. So I'm very pleased that it doesn't. You'll see we have our integral fire cartridge case deflector. And we're going to go over the bolt carrier group. We're going to take it out and we're going to go through it. And we're going to flip this around. You'll see the bolt catch and release right here. This is also a part that was modified from the original rifle. The original rifle in 1995 utilized an AR-15 M16 bolt catch, which was not nearly strong enough to halt the weight of a heavy 7.62 carrier coming forward. They were prone to breakage, so this was replaced. You'll also see we have our ambidextrous magazine release right here. You can see our standard safety. So looking on the top here, you're going to see the URX4 rail. Now this is the longer, I believe this is the 15-inch rail, and you can see that this is M-LOK. Like everybody else in the industry, the original M110s and the Mark 11s utilize the Milstanger 1913 quad rails. They have, I do believe at one point might even use the T-mod, but along with the industry, they've upgraded up into using the M-LOK, which is industry standard right now. Completely free floating. Now, something that makes this very, very special is the fact there is no barrel nut. Most of these rail systems will clamp onto a barrel nut. This is actually screwed in place onto the upper receiver and then torqued down with shims. So you're limiting the total need for the barrel nut. So that saves you on some weight. Now, it's not user-friendly for as far as swapping out barrels is concerned. You have to have a special tool and some training, but it's an incredible system. You'll see we have QD detachment points on the rear. On top of the 1913 rail, these come with backup sights. So what you're seeing here on the backup sight is the micro KAC backup sight, and it utilizes a dial here instead of having to use a bullet to rotate the elevation. Then in the rear here, we have another micro that's designed for the 308, and it utilizes a elevation and widage adjustment. And you just have one aperture on there as well. They're very low profile, so as you can see when you put a scope on here, that it doesn't get in the way. Barrel, 20-inch match-grade barrel, 5R rifling. When you talk about the barrels, it's been my experience, when you look at 20 years ago, your more accurate barrels would be the 22 to 24-inch barrels. Now, that's not necessarily true anymore. I think what happened, propellants have advanced through the years and they've modernized. The burn rates have changed quite a bit. They're much faster burning. And the whole point in having a longer barrel is to allow all of your powder to burn so you get the full velocity when the bullet hits the atmosphere. Well, back in those days, maybe 22-inch or 24-inch would have been ideal to get your best rate of burn and your highest velocity. Not anymore. In my opinion, the ideal barrel length is 18 inches. I think most propellants that are out these days, you will have all your propellant burn well within 18 inches. You'll get your maximum velocity, so it's not necessary to have the 22-inch barrels. The 16, you're still going to have most of it burned. So you're still going to have very comparable accuracy until you get out to much, much longer distances. Now, the 5R rifling is specifically for these match-type ammunition. Knights utilize those on their first rifles, the 5R. In fact, where the 5R comes from is the Remington M24, M40. The barrel blanks that were utilized on the initial rifles were the same as the M40 and M21 sniper rifles. And Knights was the only company that was ever sold those. So that was a proprietary. They were the 5R, and that's what Knights used because Knights wanted a specific barrel that was going to get guaranteed accuracy at under 1 inch at 100 yards. And every rifle that comes out of Knights in the SR25 line comes with a target where it shows it's sub-MOA. So if you're doing your job, the gun's doing its job, you will get sub-MOA with it. Now, on the original rifles, there was something else that was interesting, too. And that was the fact that the way the barrel was head-spaced, it was head-spaced and with the way the rifling sat. So if you were to have a 168 grain or a 175 grain Sierra open tip match projectile, when the bolt would lock, the cartridge projectile would be right up towards the end of the rifling. So that way you eliminate a lot of the bullet jump, and that would improve accuracy. The only problem with that is when you put ammunition other than that, that could have had a different kind of an ogive that would go in further, you would have problems with blowing primers and so forth. So the original rifles were only designed for the 168 and 175 grain OTM ammunition. However, if you decided you wanted to use different ammunition, you would send the rifle back to Knights. They would modify the throat, so you could pretty much utilize everything that was on there, for as far as any type of projectile, but they could no longer guarantee you that you're going to get the 1 MOA. So that was something that was gotten rid of with the M110 and forward. So all these will take all different types of ammunition now. You get the best results with that match ammunition, and I do have to say, utilizing my SR25 with Black Hill's 168 grain open tip match, that did outshoot this rifle, because that did have that original barrel setting where you did have the chamber that was set up for that specific ammunition. I do have to say I got closer to 1/2 MOA with that rifle, with that ammunition, than this one. And there is that difference. I believe that does make a difference, but you're also restricted to your ammunition. But the new rifles, they don't have that. Now you pretty much have a rifle length gas system on here. The E2 system is much different from the standard system. Basically, originally you would just have a gas block that's pinned in place, and then you would insert your gas tube like you would a normal AR-15 type rifle and pin it in place. Now, Knights wanted to go ahead and improve that system, so what they did was they changed it so you no longer drill and pin. What you do is you have a lock nut that you use to lock it in place, which makes it easy to maintain. The gas block slides in, and it has a little notch for indexing. And you have a spigot on there. That spigot, obviously, is straight. The gas tube flares out, as you can see from the picture. So it flares out to like a little bit of a bell. And the gas tube goes over the spigot. And then there's a lock nut that goes on behind that. And what that does is it seals the gas tube from 360 degrees. That totally eliminates any possibility of gas leakage out of the gas block, which you do get on other ones, especially if you don't have a proper gas seal. Sometimes it takes a while to get a good gas seal, but it totally eliminates that. They've been utilizing this on their SR15s and this for quite some time. It definitely is an enhancement. It definitely makes it much easier to change out barrels. And it's a low profile, so it goes underneath their handguards. So the gas system on here is definitely a step above. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the inside. Shown here is a two-stage trigger. These guys, again, pioneered this two-stage trigger, I believe, on the original rifles. And this is the current trigger that's also used on the M110. Basically, they have a no poundage on the first stage, and on the second stage, you have a 4.5 pound, which is as smooth as can be. That aids in the accuracy in this rifle quite a bit. Now, the original buffers, on the original SR15 match rifles, they use rifle-length stocks, standard stocks with standard buffer tubes. And the buffer was not even a buffer, it was a spring guide, a plastic spring guide, which they quickly changed to an actual buffer. So these utilize a buffer. And you can see in here as well, when you have the bolt catch is engaged in the open position, you'll see how the bolt release sticks out, and you push inward, and that drops down and it releases the bolt. The low receiver, Knights is extremely expensive. We can't beat around the bush with that, but I will say that the workmanship that you get is extremely nice and extremely well made. So you do get a premium rifle, but you are paying a premium price. Now we're going to take a look at the charging handle. Now there's a couple different charging handles that Knights does have. They do have an ambidextrous one, but this is a standard charging handle. And you can see we have an improved latch on here, which is much easier for you to grasp, especially when you only have it one hand. You want to go from the side because you have an optic that hangs over the charging handle. So it's a nice and aggressive, easy to use. Now we're going to take a look at the bolt carrier group. Now, this is something that I really do love that they had done. The original AR-10s utilized the chrome bolt carrier groups. Gene Stoner did that. Gene Stoner went to redesign his AR-10 into the SR25. He kept the chrome plating on there. And Knights has kept that on ever since. I think that's certainly a calling sign of Knights, because they're one of the few companies that utilize a chrome-plated bolt carrier. I think the only other one that does that really is Lewis Machine & Tool. And I do believe that Rock River at one point had done that as well. I'm not sure if they still do or not. But I personally prefer chrome. Now, as you can see, we also have a next generation bolt carrier where we have the sand cuts on here as well. We have a properly staked carrier key. This is a standard AR-15 M16 carrier key. And then we have a captive firing pin retaining pin, which I absolutely love. I can't understand why more manufacturers have not done this. This is one of the greatest things that you can do. The firing pin retaining pin for a military rifle is one of the most commonly lost parts. So why nobody's done this to the standard AR-15 M16 type carrier groups, I have no idea. But to me, it's a no-brainer. So we're going to drop out the firing pin. Now we're going to go to the lock position, and we're going to drop the cam pin right out. And we're going to pull the bolt out. Now, of course, this is chromed on the inside and the outside, which obviously is a major benefit. Now, what I really like about chrome is a couple things. First, it's harder than the standard steel. Second of all, it has a lubricity to it when it heats up. And three, it's very easy to clean. You just basically wipe your debris off, and that's all you got to do with it. You don't have to scrub it like you do with a lot of these other ones. It's not porous like manganese phosphate. Now, looking at the bolt, this bolt has gone through a lot of evolution since the original rifles. If you go back to the original SR25 in 1995, this is very, very different. It's gone through a lot of improvement. So we're going to go over what the features of this are versus some of the earlier designs. Now, first off, if you look at the geometry of the locking lugs has changed over the years. They've rounded off a lot of the edges to take off a lot of the stress, which basically makes these bolts indestructible. For the most part, the barrel life, for the most part, the life of the bolts on these are well over 10,000 rounds. And I can't say for sure because I've never broken one. I've had several of these over the years, not necessarily Knights. I only own one Knights, and that's the original one that's only had about 700 or 800 rounds through it. I don't shoot it on a regular basis. But I've had other rifles that I've shot a lot of rounds through, and even on the lower quality or lower end versions of the bolts, I've never broken one. But this is designed for military use. It's extremely durable. Now, their ejectors have gone through three changes. Initially, you had a standard one ejector that was on the original AR-10. Well, from there, when they went to the Mark 11, some of the improvements that they made was they made that ejector larger, and they drilled the hole deeper so you could get a stronger spring in there, so you would have stronger ejection force. Now, then they found out that it would be more desirable with the M110 if they were to put two ejector springs in there. And the two ejectors, what they do is they launch that cartridge case out of there quickly and far. And what that does is it prevents any kind of failure to eject because it's getting the cartridge case out of there that much faster. So it's really a benefit for any rifle, especially towards the shorter barrel rifles that have a higher cyclic rate. You also have a geometry and increased strength, as you can see from it in here. Now, if you look in the back here, instead of utilizing the beer can type gas rings, they utilize a two ring system, much more durable than the standard beer can gas rings. Now we're going to remove the extractor. And as you can see, we have a very durable and very aggressive claw on here. And we have a pretty heavy-duty extractor spring on there. So those are all things that make this thing that much more durable and more reliable. So the evolution that these have been gone through with military guns. So unlike a lot of the commercial manufacturers, you don't have the kind of durability problems, and you don't have the kind of usage that you do with a military gun. So when a gun's being used in the field by a soldier, you can definitely see exactly where the strengths and the weaknesses of that rifle are, and how much more you need to do to it to make it that much more durable and reliable. And that's what you see with the SR25. You're talking a lot of years of development with the use of special operations, SOCOM Navy SEALs, as well as to regular Green Army. For reassembly. On the stiff side. Make sure your extractor is at the 3 o'clock position. Drop it in like so. Drop it in your firing pin. close like so. Do is we're going to reinstall. Try to handle first. Okay. Now we have a 762 QDC flash hider on here, which is designed for a Knight's Armament suppressor. You can obviously remove this for any kind of sound suppressor that you may have. Now before we take this to the range, I want to go over a couple more products that I decided to use on this. Now I'll talk a little bit about the optic I have on here. Just about a month ago, I received some T&E optics from Vortex. So this is the first time I've really had a chance to use any of these Vortex optics. And the one that's on here is their 5-25 by 50, the Vortex Razor. Now, I have to say, I was very, very impressed with this optic. It was extremely clear. You know, it's a 30mm tube, it's waterproof. This is also illuminated. You can adjust the illumination. You got a length of 15.8 inches. I also do have the sun guard on here as well. Now, we do have it did come with the caps on the end too, but unfortunately, the way the mounts are that I've chosen, they sit down low, so you really can't use the end covers. It did come with a easy to adjust, as you see on here. And you have the turrets on the side for as far as adjustment. And I have to say the optic is extremely nice. It was clear. It made longer range shooting quite easy and quite pleasant. Now the next thing I want to show you on here is this mount. Now I tried a few different mounts with this rifle. Initially I had a standard Vortex mount on here, and then I got myself one of the spur mounts. Spur mounts are literally the Swiss watches of scope mounts. They are the finest built, most well-made, and they just look like a battle mount. They're very easy to mount. The way you have a tool that goes underneath here and basically gives you your level, so it's very easy to get a mechanical zero for as far as your orientation with it. And I added this on here too, which is a 1913 rail, so you can put a small red dot on there. Obviously, with a rifle like this where you're starting off at 5 power, it's not one you're going to be able to switch to a close quarter battle situation and get up and get a quick sight picture. It's not going to happen. That's why it's always better to have for an optic a 2 to 4 power when you have one that you're going to be using in a close quarter battle condition, because you can get that up pretty quick and get a good sight picture. Not so much when you're starting at a 5 power. So that way you can go right from the optic to the small RMR type sight and utilize that for your close range. But this is the first time I've really had a chance to use any of the spur mounts. Another really neat thing about this, if you can see it, as you see right here, we have a level bubble. So I can tell you when you're straight, it's built right into the back of the mount. It's pretty awesome. Most companies will manufacture one that mounts to the rail that's not part of the mount. This is built right into it. So this is a really neat feature that Spur offers as well. The next product we have on here, as I added, was the new Magpul Bipod. This is made from a 6061 T6 aluminum as well as stainless steel and polymer. There's 3 different ways you can mount this. You have the mill standard 1913, you have M-LOK, and then you have one set up for one of the Swan throw lever mounts. This particular one here is for the 1913 rail. Now if you look, you have a button you push in, and once you push that button in, you have your adjustments. Then you have a button here for you to be able to move your legs up. Then on the bottom you have a dial here, so when you loosen it up, it enables you to move left and right and round. You want it solid, you just lock it in place and you're good to go. Now, like anything that comes out of Magpul, they just do good work. It's not inexpensive. It's a MSRP of $104, but I have to say that it's very, very well made. Probably the only thing that I didn't care for about it was the way these slid. It'd be nice to have these a little bit more abrasive, so when you're on a bench or anything, they wouldn't slide as much, or some kind of a rubber that would prevent them from sliding as much. But everybody using these differently. So some people will use use them like this. Some like the spikes. I mean, it just depends on what your interest is. Also on here for Magpul, we have their rail covers that are 2 pieces. These go into the M-LOK. I am very, very fond of these. These are an excellent product. And the last thing I want to talk about before we hit the range is ammunition. Now, the ammunition I got my groups with this rifle is the Black Hills 308 175 grain OTM. That's basically the M118LR. I want to talk a little bit about Black Hills ammunition. because, I utilize a lot of ammunition. For the most part, every time I get a rifle, I will try different ammunition. Generally I'll try Black Hills, I'll try Federal, I'll try SIG, I'll try, gold medal or whatever. I have probably 5 or 6 different kinds of 308 match rounds here that I like to use. And I always got to say, at least 90% of the time, the best groups come with Black Hills ammunition. Now, there's a reason for that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Black Hills, it's owned by a gentleman named Jeff Hoffman and his wife, Christy. Jeff is a former police sniper, and he's also a competitive long-range shooter. This guy knows what he's doing. The manufacturing facility, I've been out there, and I will tell you what one of the major parts that makes this ammunition stand out is the way that it's manufactured. It is not mass-produced like most of these other kinds of ammunitions are. If you were to see the machines that are utilized by Black Hills, they're machines that it moves slow. It moves slow, and it moves precise. And but that's where you get a lot of this precision accuracy, not to mention the fact the way that they're set up their employees. They mate one individual to one machine. That guy knows that machine so well that he's able to hear if there's anything out of whack with it. That's how precise it is. The machines are calibrated several times, sometimes in a day, to make sure that you're getting the proper loads. Every lot goes to have it tested, and they have their own, very, very nice ballistics lab. And the degree of quality control that goes into these is, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist in other manufacturers, but I think it goes just that much extra. And down to its final packaging, you have a box of ammunition that will get weighed. And if it's out of spec, that box of ammunition is pulled, so that way they can find out why it's too heavy or why it's too light. So that's another interesting thing about it. And now, something else which really is impressive is the fact that when SOCOM or our military has ammunition issues, they go to them. Black Hills has manufactured and designed the Mark 262 ammunition for use with the Mark 12 rifle. It was designed along with the rifle. And many, many times SOCOM has had issues with any specific things, such as barrier-type ammunition, or they need ammunition that they're going to be able to use on, say, boats so they won't pierce the hulls. Army Marksmanship Unit, Marine Marksmanship Unit, all that ammunition they go to Jeff Hoffman for. He has the expertise and the ability to make all that custom ammunition, and he's done a lot of work on the development of some of our current ammunition as well, including our newest generations of the M118LR. So this is the guy they go to when they want something special made. So I think it's the way that he makes his ammunition, the way that the quality control is, and you're going to pay for that. This is not cheap ammunition, and there's no way that it could be. It's not just made by a machine and that's it. There's human hands that handle this a couple times before it goes into the box. Just to make sure there's no blemishes, there's no issues with it whatsoever. And you're going to pay for that degree of quality, but once you put it in the rifle and you start shooting some groups with it, you start to see how incredible this ammunition is, its consistency. I mess with lab radar quite a bit, and if you look at its, the spread for as far as velocities, it's generally within 5 to 10 feet a second. It's very, very continuous. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the range and we're going to see how this shoots. Well, my tightest group of the day was 0.97 inches. Now, I am by no means a sniper, so that could be me, that not necessarily the rifle, but 0.97 inches is well underneath. It's underneath what Knight's guarantees the one MOA. Now, I'm sure with more shooting, this barrel breaking in, we probably would have even gotten a little bit better. This rifle, when I got it, was brand new. So they provided me with a new rifle rather than the M110 they provided me with. Shot really, really nice, and that barrel was very, very well worn in. So there's something to say about breaking in a barrel, but it still met the 1-inch guarantee. Now is the unpleasantness when we start talking about the MSRP. The MSRP on this sucker is $4,900. Now that's a very big pill to swallow. For those out there who have the money they can spend, this is an absolute incredible rifle. Any of these Knight's armaments are, you're getting a prestigious rifle, you're getting a very well-made rifle, but the price point eliminates a lot of customers out there. But you are getting a rifle that's guaranteed from the manufacturer. Now, for $3,500, you can purchase just the upper receiver. So you could drop that on any, for instance, LMT lower receiver, any of the newer Armalite lower receivers that utilize the AR-10 type receivers. Now, the DPMS, when the receiver comes up, it comes up on a circular angle. These come down on an angle like so. So DPMS is round. This one goes down on the angle. Now, I prefer this method over the DPMS. I believe it's stronger. I have seen some of the DPMS pattern where the receivers are broken right in this area right here, and the stock part has come off of the rifle. I can't say as I've seen that with the Armalite type system, which you see here, so I do believe it's a much stronger receiver. So I hope you guys did enjoy this. There's a lot to say about these rifles. I have many videos out there on the history of the M110 where we go back and we look at all the earlier versions. This video I wanted to focus more on this newer version than talk about so much of the history. If you're interested in the history, you go back to the M110 video and so forth, and you'll see more of that development. I really enjoyed this rifle. It's a really, really nice shooter. I would love to have one in my collection, but it's out of my price range. But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. I'll see if I can get back to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Please consider becoming a Patreon. Thank you.